Welcome to Blue Marble Defender story number 34, The White Coat Gang. Introduction. Dear reader, I'm your narrator, Tess, and I'm going to introduce you to the story by answering some questions you might be asking yourself. Like, where did this book come from? What's it all about? And why should I give it my time? Well, this book is the 12th in a series about the Blue Marble Defenders, a small group dedicated to defending Earth. Yep, the whole planet. They defend you and everybody else from extraterrestrial threats and homegrown human threats. This story is about unscrupulous people who imported creatures from the asteroid belt and used them for evil. If learning how it plays out sounds worth your time, just read on. Chapter 1, Hungry Blueberries. Hey, it's great when you're in a groove. I was swinging the fungo bat Rookie's father gave him, and I was hitting the highest fly balls of my life. I realized by changing the angle of my swing to a more horizontal plane, I could whack the ball over the boy's head and make them run their legs off chasing it. I shouldn't have admitted that in print, I guess, because I told Rookie and Leo that those hits were mistakes. My mother would have described me with the French word méchant, meaning naughty, but naughty with I'll say a little bit of shade of maliciousness. After I'd hit about 20 to each of the boys, Leo ran in to swap places with me. I had dropped the fungo and was jogging out to the field when I noticed 3 white vans parked up the hill and along the street near Rookie. They were like van triplets. 2 men stood at the back door of each van, tugging out a large blue, seemingly soft object. They wore white coats with shiny steel buttons and white trousers. It was a weird scene, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. When the blue things were out on the street, I could see they were 2-meter-high pliable balls. Then the men positioned them, pushed, and the ball started rolling down the hill toward us, gaining speed. At first it seemed like a comedy routine, but alarm bells went off in my head as they got closer. Rookie was nearest to the vans, but he was looking my way and hadn't seen them. I yelled, "Check out the giant blueberry aiming at you!" He turned and saw it coming. I thought he'd be safe, but the thing bounded, and it landed right on top of him, and it kept rolling. But where was Rookie? My heart jumped into my throat. Only then did I notice another blueberry heading directly for me, and from the corner of my eye I saw one aiming for Leo. I yelled, "Head for the street!" He looked up, saw it, and we both ran. My blueberry was faster than I was, but I was able to reach the street and stand behind a car. The blueberry was bounding now. Leo yelled, "Tess, get under the car!" I looked up and saw the blue ball had taken a tremendous jump. It was going to land on me. I had only a second or two to escape. Going under the car would be no picnic with the pavement covered with pebbles, but now was my time for doing, not thinking, and wringing my hands. If I didn't take action, I might wind up inside a blueberry. I lay flat, turned my head sideways, squeezed, pushed, and wriggled myself under the car, scraping half my skin off. The berry landed where I'd been standing seconds before. It put on the brakes, taking only a small bounce, and then rolled back toward me. The thing was right next to the car. I could have touched it. Squeaking sounds of its skin against the door went right through me. It bumped the car, rubbed it, and rebounded every few seconds. I was scared, panicked actually, but I was protected, at least for now. After 5 long minutes of that blue ball trying to get at me, I heard a vehicle approach and pass slowly. It braked, and it stopped. I could see its wheels, then human feet, white pants. 2 sets. The sound of a door opening, then another. I heard, "Got it. Lift now. Push down on the top and I'll push from the back." Then I heard the sound of doors closing. The engine started, the truck departed. I I stayed, breathed, watched. 2 more trucks passed slowly, but I couldn't tell where they went after that. After about 10 minutes, Leo's voice reached me. "They're gone. Come on out. Carefully. Don't rush like I did. I drew blood and I have an egg growing on my head." Sliding out was wicked. Pebbles dug into me. My elbows, my wrists, my knees, my hamburger ankles. Unlike getting under the car with a motivation to survive, I moved like a snail. Leo wanted to help, but if he'd pulled, it would have peeled more skin off. When I finally made it out, he helped me stand and walked me a dozen steps onto the field. We sat on the grass. He was angry and worried and said, "Rook never had a chance. I can't imagine what those blue balls were, but they didn't just spring from the ground. Trucks, people in uniform." Tess, we were targeted. There's an organization behind this, an evil one. Now, folks, here's some background for you before I continue the story. Again, my name is Tess. Leo and Rookie are brothers and my friends. Along with their family and some other friends, we're the Blue Marble Defenders. We all have normal lives with school and sports and stuff, but our most important work is defending the planet from attacks. Attacks on Earth from the outside, meaning extraterrestrials, and attacks on Earth from the inside, meaning environmental polluters. We three were in Adelaide, Australia, helping Pops, Leo and Rookie's father. We all call him Pops. He'd been requested to teach a class about how to deal with extraterrestrials for the city's police department, and he asked the three of us to come along to add our own experiences to his talks and to help with one-on-one question sessions after his lectures. This Saturday morning was the first day hadn't been on stage in front of police officers all day, and we thought we'd spend it outside just enjoying some baseball in a small city park. Leo said, "I'll call the police in a second, but first I need to let Pops know Rookie was abducted." He pulled out his phone, reached his father, explained the situation, and nodded a few times while listening. When he turned to me, his eyes showed he was distraught. And he said, "Pops says those blue balls are living organisms. They're ETs from the asteroid belt, and he suspects they were captured and smuggled to Earth by a team of rogue scientists 2 months ago. The world scientists wanted the organisms to be studied in place on the asteroid and not exploited on Earth for any reason. But we know every scientist isn't ethical. We also know we should be scared." I was sensitive to Leo's feelings. He was having trouble containing his worry, but I needed to know what he knew. So with a gentle circular roll of my hand, I asked him to continue. He blurted out, "We have to act fast. The initial studies performed on the asteroid showed the blue organism can open its skin and digest almost anything. There's no regurgitation or any natural way out. Its meal just sits inside until 3 days later, when the organism has presumably analyzed it and decided what enzymes it needs. Then it unleashes a flood of toxic digestive juice." Leo took a deep breath, closed his eyes, shook his head, reached into his backpack and took out a green Boston Red Sox cap, saying, "This is for luck, you know." And he pulled it on. I felt all cold inside. Rookie was about to be digested by a giant blueberry. I jumped to my feet. "Let me borrow your phone." My new friend Andrew, an Adelaide policeman I'd tutored about extraterrestrials, called back only an hour later. I was so relieved when I heard what he had to say. "Tess, we found a white van hidden in some trees down by the ocean front, and it has a giant blue ball in it. The officer who found it yelled and thought he heard something. But I have no idea if Rookie's inside. What the heck do we do now?" Andrew said he was heading to the scene now, and he gave me the address so Leo and I could meet him there. I was just as clueless as Andrew about what to do, but Leo phoned Pops again, and then he said he could handle it. I liked hearing those words, but my heart was still firmly lodged in my throat. On arrival, the two of us stepped from the taxi into a surreal scene. Two police cars' bubble lights were revolving and their taillights were flashing red. A third aimed its headlights at the van while 6 policemen held pistols and shotguns. One was kneeling, aiming his shotgun at the giant blue ball bulging from the van's back door. Leo walked toward the officer and waved him to lower his weapon just as Andrew's police cruiser pulled up. Andrew surveyed the situation, told the other officers to stand down, and we all watched in silence as Leo approached the van. He patted the side of the giant Blueberry 3 times and said loudly, "Rook, Leo here. If you can hear me, get ready. You're going to fall 3 or 4 feet." He put his arms around the Blueberry and they reached about halfway. Then he walked backward, pulling on it until it slipped over the edge of the van's floor panel and fell onto the ground. It bounced only slightly, and Leo kept his hands on it to prevent it from rolling. Then he reached into his pocket and took out a metal disc about the size of an American quarter, or like a euro. Pulling the sticky tape from its backside, he stuck it onto the top of the Blueberry. Then he pulled out a second disc and stuck it near the bottom. Gee, inventors. They can be amazing to watch, especially Leo. Then he pulled a small gadget from his shirt pocket. I'd never seen or heard anything about it, even though we'd been working and goofing off together for a week in Australia. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen next with the Blue Marble Defenders. At first, I thought Leo had a Swiss Army knife, and I shuddered at the idea he would cut the Blueberry. I sure wanted to save Rookie, but I didn't like the idea of cutting the Blueberry. After all, it was a living organism and it wasn't in this situation because it wanted to hurt somebody. I needn't have worried. Leo unfolded the tool, whatever it was, stood on his toes, and traced an arc from the coin on the top to the coin on the bottom, leaving some thin substance on the Blueberry's surface. He pushed a button on the side of his device, and with a small, muted pop, the Blueberry opened slightly along the line he had traced. He pushed back the 2 sides of the Blueberry's skin near its bottom, stuck his head in, laid on his belly, and extended his arms inside. He tugged, raised to his knees, and then stood. Rookie crawled out on his hands and knees. Goo dripped from him. I rushed over and wiped Rookie's face with a handkerchief while he was still on all fours. He was blinking a lot, probably sensitive to the bright sunlight glinting off the water after he'd been in the dark for about 4 hours. I asked if he wanted to stand, and he nodded, took my hand, and was a bit unsteady for a minute or 2. Then he shook himself, smiled at Leo, acknowledged the police officers, turned his head, and barfed on the ground. Rookie was a hero, but a very human hero. I got him a glass of water, and while I was helping Rookie wipe the glue off, Leo folded the Blueberry's skin back together, did something I couldn't see with his device, and the Blueberry appeared fully normal and back together again. After a police medic gave Rookie a quick exam, Andrew drove the 3 of us back to the apartment we'd rented and told Rookie to get some sleep. I knew Rookie was knackered, but I was dying to know what it was like inside a giant Blueberry, especially if you didn't know if you'd ever get out. Rook's eyes focused somewhere out the window. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Well, Tess, if you've ever gone to a lakeside amusement park and gone inside one of the clear plastic balloons tethered in a lake, you know, the ones where you walk and you fall and then it's tough to get up and you try to run and you fall again and you keep trying until you're exhausted? It was a bit like that, but moving was more difficult. I couldn't see. Breathing was very hard. And when I fell, it wasn't fun like when you're in a lake and you can see through the ball. Not being able to see, not knowing if your air will run out, inhaling goo every once in a while and being coated with it, well, you wouldn't have loved it. I was about to make a wisecrack when Leo's phone rang. He answered, "Hey, Pops, Rookie's just fine, and he's torturing us by putting off taking a shower. Want to talk with him?" Leo listened, then his expression darkened. He nodded, and he said, "Okay, Pops, we'll get on it." Chapter 2, A New Assignment. "Leo, what's happening?" I said. "The three of us have a new assignment. Pops heard through the Adelaide police chief that the Prime Minister received a message that all of Australia's kangaroos would be eliminated if he didn't send $1 billion Australian dollars in Bitcoin to a dark web account. For now, the Prime Minister's treating it as a crank scam, and he's ignoring it. He even joked, 'They'd be doing us a favor. The farmers are always after me to get rid of some roos because they damage fences and eat crops.' Well, all right, I'll tell you, but Pops isn't laughing. He's concerned. This kind of blackmail seems to fit Fun's modus operandi. If Fun's behind this, it's not a low-budget scam some oddball crank dreamed up with another dude. It's a highly organized and potentially lethal operation led by an amoral master criminal. When three of us faced Fund at that Florida chocolate factory, we saw his ability to bring other gangs into his plot. Yeah. Pop says he'll handle the police training sessions by himself, and he wants the three of us to make a plan, move quickly, keep informed, and get these guys. Kangaroos are an important part of Australia's identity and its tourist industry. We need to put this to bed before the government is forced to pay a ransom." With a smile, Rookie bowed his head, and announced formally that since we'd been given a serious assignment, he'd take a shower just to keep his dried goo from gumming up our teamwork. Leo excused himself to do some work on a new invention he thought might come in handy later, and I said I'd work out an overall plan and talk it around later. First thing I asked myself was, just how would a bad guy or group of bad guys go about threatening or eliminating kangaroos? I had no idea. I asked myself where they'd start, but she's Australia is huge. With no easy answers, I researched what part of Australia was home to the greatest density of kangaroos, and I learned it was the Canberra area. Then I researched how many kangaroos lived on the continent. Listen to this. I found it was 50 million. My biggest question was, where would I start if I were a bad guy? There was no way an evildoer could capture or kill 50 million animals, especially if they started near Canberra, the capital of the country and home to ACES, their equivalent to the US's FBI. Then the answer popped into my head. Alice Springs. When Leo and Rookie came back, I told them my plan. They looked baffled and replied together, "Huh?" Rookie threw his arms wide open and continued, "But that's in the Outback, Tess. It's the middle of nowhere." I explained Alice Springs was the closest town to Uluru, the massive red sandstone rock considered sacred by Indigenous Australian people and formerly known as Ayers Rock. Rising above the flat desert and seeming to glow, it's one of the country's biggest tourist attractions, the only one near kangaroo habitat and without a major police presence. I said the bad guys would be counting on tourists outraged that the government didn't protect the kangaroos. With a wide open country there, bad guys could also see the police coming from great distances. Well, the boys nodded, and I said, the downside of the location for us is that it's a 15-hour drive to Alice Springs and another 5 to Uluru. But I still think it's our best bet. I'll get us plane tickets and reserve a Land Rover for the last leg out to Uluru. Rookie said, "Hey, hold on, Tess. We might have a more convenient option. I'll call Uncle Amerigo and see if he's willing to let us use his car plane. Blackie. Now, the three of us has ridden in Namibia and Africa, and it was not only convenient, but it was also a fantastic machine. Rookie said, "Ooh, I forgot to wash my hand." And he held out his supposedly slimy hand to Rookie and punched in a phone number, walked around the apartment talking, looked at Leo and me, and gave me a thumbs up. At the call's end, he said, "We lucked out. Blackie is over in New Zealand being fitted with additional armor plates and just around the corner, radar. His team was just about to fly it to the U.S., so it's being loaded on a jet right now. It'll arrive here in 4 hours. Here we come, Alice Springs, in comfort." When Leo's phone rang 4 hours later, Rookie answered, spoke a few words, and told Leo and me Blackie had just arrived in front of the apartment. Rookie had the most airtime in Blackie, so Leo and I were happy for him to pilot the 3-hour flight. He mentioned that Amerigo cautioned against deploying any of Blackie's sophisticated weapons unless we were threatened. Since our lives had already been threatened by those blueberries, we certainly hoped we didn't need them. Chapter 3, The Outback. I loved the way Blackie rose from the driveway to about the height of our 3-story apartment building and gracefully changed course when Rookie put her into jet flight mode. From then on, the ride was quiet, not too different from flying in a normal jet. A non-stop chatter about what we might encounter in the Outback made the 3-hour ride pass quickly, and Rookie brought her down on an empty highway just outside Alice Springs. Blackie again appeared to be just a large, shiny black car. He turned the steering wheel over to me, and I headed toward Uluru. "According to my research," I said, "we won't be seeing any kangaroos for several hours." Those words had barely left my mouth when Rookie pointed and said, "Hey, Tess, you might want to reread that research because I already see a roo up ahead." Then I saw it too, near the horizon, a floating kangaroo balloon the size of an elephant tethered to the ground. As we came closer, we could see that it advertised Dundee's gas station. I pulled Blackie in front, and a disheveled dude wandered out and inquired, "Fill her up?" I nodded. We were heading out to Uluru and weren't expecting many stations on the road. He brought the pump's nozzle over as the three of us got out, stretched our legs, and headed for the shop door. The left wall was lined with coolers for beer, and the right wall with coolers for soft drinks. Shelving in the center was filled with groceries and, of course, dolls, keychains, boomerangs, and even a baseball with kangaroos painted on it. Straight ahead was a countertop and a huge red-faced man with bushy red hair and eyebrows that I assumed was Dundee. As the three of us walked toward him, Rookie called out, "Crocodile Dundee, I presume?" "You can't get the jump on me with a line like that, young feller. I hear it about 20 times a day. I'm Domino Dundee at your service." "Old Crocodile Dundee, well, that's just the stage persona of an actor you might have seen in the movies. I'm a real Dundee. Yes, sir, a bona fide, full-time gas station owner." But then again, you might have thought I was the man who runs the kangaroo sanctuary up the road. He's not really a Dundee either, but he's a fine man who cares for roos hurt by car accidents and the like. I'd be happy to be associated with him. He's called Kangaroo Dundee, and the BBC did a documentary on him once. I like his straight talk. He says kangaroos are sometimes very friendly and approachable, kind of like beach bums. But like dogs, they just want to be fed. As for me, yep, I'm a genuine Dundee at your service. Remember now, that's Domino Dundee. He shook his head, and a second later, a huge smile lit up his broad face, followed by, "Well, all righty, I'm just running my mouth too much. Beside gas, what could I do for you folks?" Leo explained we were in the area, following up on a tip that a criminal gang may be planning to destroy the kangaroo population. I was pleased that he left out the part about giant blueberries being their method because I could imagine Dundee falling into a fit of laughter. Leo asked, and Dundee told us where the greatest concentration of roos would be hanging out this time of year, and he confirmed we were going in the right direction. He added, "But like my neighbor says, don't feed them or they'll follow you all day." I then asked if he knew of any difficulties on the road ahead that Google Maps wasn't aware of. He said the only risk we had was encountering a traffic jam. Well, Leo shook his head and chuckled. "Hey, Mr. Dundee, we may be new to the Outback, but we weren't born yesterday. Anyone can see there's not much out here except sand and kangaroos." "Well, mate, I'm referring to the parade of white vans that passed through here yesterday. The big lead van stopped for gas, and a whole gang of smaller ones lined up behind it. It was weird. All the drivers wore white jackets. The lead guy stood right where you're standing and drank a soft drink as my assistant pumped gas into one after another until my tanks ran dry. The guy's bill was over $3,000 dues, and it would have been more, but, like I said, we ran out. The guy gave me a pineapple for a tip, a $50 Australian note. He said he'd be stopping back in a few days, and if I had enough gas to fill up his whole train of vans, he'd give me 10 Jolly Green Giants. Oh, well, you should know those are $100 notes. Not a bad tip, so my assistants are going to work 24-hour shifts and call me whenever that parade comes back this way. Rookie said, "A parade generally has an audience and a purpose." Well, he wasn't very forthcoming about why it was out here in the Outback, but his line of vehicles included a truck pulling a trailer with a big ditch digger machine. I was trying to figure out what he was going to do, build a hotel or something, and, well, I thought I'd try to figure it out myself, but then I decided I'd just ask him straight out. He answered me, "Oh, I'll be researching Australian fauna for the government of Harpistan." I didn't take him seriously since I never heard of Harpistan. Then right away he asks where the dunny is. The loo, the toilet, and he walks out. I guess he didn't want me to ask any more questions. Rookie continued searching for information and said, "You called him the lead guy. Were there others who looked like they were in charge too?" Well, there was this other dude, shorter and nastier looking, who swaggered in here as though he owned the place. I didn't get close to him because his breath was so bad he might have just returned from a kissathon with kangaroos. A kissathon held inside a kangaroo's pouch, maybe, or a garbage shed. When I asked him, he said they'd be catching kangaroos and selling them for dog food. But then he laughed and said it was a joke. I'd already figured it was a joke, but this guy looked like he'd eat a kangaroo raw. Rookie asked, "Was there anything unusual in his physical appearance? The lead guy, did he anything unique about him?" Dundee just shrugged. Rookie said, "The guy didn't wear a goatee, did he?" "Well, it just so happens he did, matey. How'd you know that?" Just made a lucky guess. I make them once in a while. I took Blackie back to the road, but the mood in her passenger compartment was really downbeat. Adding the goatee to the billion-dollar ransom demand made it more and more likely Fun was behind this, and each of us knew our lives were now in danger. If you've not read any of the Blue Marble Defender books, you should know this. Fund is an arch criminal, supremely evil and deadly. If Fund was in this, those bouncing blueberries back in Adelaide were definitely intended to end our lives and prevent us defenders from interfering with his plan. threatening and maybe even killing innocent animals to extort money from Australia's government. Well, that was a depth of depravity we'd not yet seen from the lowlife Funt. And if he really was in Australia and the author of such a dastardly plan, we now knew we had a caravan of trucks, a gang, and probably weapons at his disposal. Rookie Leo and I just had each other and, well, Blackie. I guess we also had sandwiches we bought from Dundee, but we had no appetite for them. Chapter 4, A Long Road. We still had a nearly 5-hour drive to Uluru ahead of us. I was tempted to put Blackie into jet mode and flyer, but I didn't want to risk alerting the White Coat gang to our presence. They already had the advantage of numbers and weapons, and we needed the element of surprise. To fill the car's silence, I decided to tell the guys more about the research I'd done. So, guys, here are a few facts. Kangaroos are one of 250 species in a grouping called marsupials. They are found naturally in Australia and in Papua New Guinea. Wallabies, they're almost the same as kangaroos, but somewhat smaller. Now, males are called boomers, and the Australian men's basketball team picked that up for their own nickname. Females are called does or flyers, and young are called joeys. Newborns, well, they're only about 2.5 centimeters long, the size of a grape or something. And the term joey comes from the Aboriginal word for small animal. They live in social groups called mobs, troops, or courts. Now, before you give me a hard time for going nerd on you guys, here are a few fun facts. Kangaroos can use their tails as a fifth leg. Some can jump almost 8 meters. Most are left-handed. Joeys are cradled in a fold in their mother's belly called a pouch. And if it has siblings, a newborn joey can go dormant while waiting for its mother's pouch to be vacant. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm using the mirror here, but I can see your eyes glazing over, so I'll change the subject and tell you some other stuff about Australia. You might have heard in a song or joke about something called a didgeridoo. Well, that's a wind instrument, a hollow stick 6 or 8 centimeters wide and almost 2 meters long. It was played here for 1,000 years by Aboriginal people before being picked up by others and used around the world in this past century. Leo and Rookie just sat staring ahead with glazed eyes. I really couldn't tell if they were sleeping. How am I doing, boys? Oh, that bad, huh? Well, okay. I'll tell you this last bit because we decided to skip going to Kangaroo Dundee Sanctuary. Car collisions cause the deaths of nearly 8,000 roos a year. And, guys, okay, get some sleep. It'll still be a few hours before there's anything other than this flat, empty territory. Now, maybe an hour later, Leo opened his eyes, reached for a bottle of water, glanced out the side window and says, "Sure is flat and dry out here, Tess. How long till we're near Ayers Rock?" I replied, "It's still about an hour. I know it's getting late in the day, but I'm thinking we should get close to the rock before we look for a place to camp." And as I turned my head to look at Leo, I saw something in the distance, pointed and asked, "What's that on the horizon?" "Tess, that's a mob of roos, or should I say a troop? Or should I say a court of kangaroos?" "Well, Leo, I wasn't sure you were awake when I was babbling those facts. Or were you actually asleep and just did your own homework on the Outback?" He gave me a smile and opened his hand, saying, "Well, I do like to know a little bit about the environment I'm getting into." So, Leo, you came prepared. Did your prep include any new inventions that might help us overcome the odds we'll be facing with the gang we're up against? Well, Tess, I packed an oldie. I thought it might be useful, and I also put together a new gadget. I'll give you all the details later if we need them. Now I'm closing my eyes again. As we continued our drive, I saw 3 more mobs of roos in the distance, all on the right side of the road. And then Uluru finally came into view. Half-hour later, when the massive rock was looming large and glowing in the evening light, I took an unmarked road that branched to the right. After bumping along for a few kilometers, Rookie woke from his sleep and mumbled, "Hey, hey, let's find a stand of trees to mask Blackie from prying eyes, and it'll be dark soon, and we can make camp. I want to get back to sleep and finish a dream I was having about a giant blueberry being eaten by a giant raspberry inside a giant kangaroo pouch." Well, I pulled Blackie to a stop. We were admiring how the rock glowed deep red in the setting sun when Rookie said, "Oh no, did you see the movement over there? Out past the far stand of trees? I think it's one of those blueberries."